So maybe you're neurodivergent or suspect you may be neurodivergent, but you don't quite tick all the boxes that seem to be the traits or characteristics of being autistic, ADHD, or dyslexic, for example. So I'm Nikki Butler, also known as the Autistic Joyologist, and this is something that comes up a lot, and it's certainly something that I struggled with both prior to being diagnosed autistic and ADHD in my mid-40s and also since. And that is not ticking all the boxes or meeting all of the criteria for being autistic, ADHD, and dyslexic in my case. And I had a formal diagnosis of autism and ADHD, and more recently, the realisation that I'm dyslexic, having done the online screening. And what's really interesting, first of all, is the misconceptions around what being neurodivergent is or means, and we still have these outdated stereotypes and stigmas that many of society buy into. But equally, for those of us that are neurodivergent or suspect we may be, it can be really confusing if we are looking at a checklist of characteristics or traits and we're resonating with some and not with others. I think it's really important to address this because, first of all, it is a spectrum. So we won't all have exactly the same traits or characteristics as each other. And equally, because our lives are so different and the factors that influence our lives are different, we're going to experience the characteristics and traits that we do have in a very different way. And I've had some really interesting conversations where, even after formal diagnosis, other women have said, it just makes me question whether I am autistic or do have ADHD because I don't have some of the traits or don't have some of the traits all of the time. And I guess what I would say to you is being neurodivergent doesn't mean ticking all the boxes in every area. And it doesn't mean ticking the boxes all of the time because there are so many factors that can affect how much our ADHD, autism, or dyslexia impacts us on a day-to-day basis. Many of us have created incredible coping mechanisms or strategies that allow us to cope with things in a certain way. And certainly for many of us that are late diagnosed, we are going to have those coping strategies and ways of masking and living that are subconscious, that we maybe don't even realise are strategies that we've had in place, or the way that you have moved your life or evolved your life in a way that means there are certain elements that you can completely avoid. So, for example, for me, I really struggle in big groups of people and noisy, bustling environments. Now, back in the day when I was in corporate, I was on a campus where there was about 2,000 people, 7 buildings, multiple floors, juggling things like bright lights, open plan offices, constant noise, juggling meetings in different parts of the campus. And that was very overwhelming in many ways and triggered anxiety, insomnia, lots of other issues. But since I've been self-employed, I have constructed a work life that means I work in a very calm environment, in a very balanced way. I'm usually in small groups or one-to-one with clients, or I'm online. So I'm able to manage the environment. So some of the areas that I would have really struggled with in that corporate environment are no longer as much of a challenge because I don't expose myself to that stimulus or those triggers. So if I were to perhaps look at a checklist of typical autistic or ADHD traits, actually I've removed some of the stress factors, so those areas are less impacting or less obvious in my life. And so I really want you to think about that and just acknowledge it's a spectrum and acknowledge the fact you're not going to have all of the traits and they might not show up all of the time in all environments. And you don't have to justify that to anybody. And again, that is something that is very challenging and many of us have faced. And maybe you've faced that where somebody said, you don't look autistic, it seems like you've got ADHD, or you don't seem like you're dyslexic, because they only experience you in one part of your life, in one way, in one sort of state. And if somebody challenges you on that, remind them that your neurodivergence, your experiences have nothing to do with how they experience you. Your neurodivergence has everything to do with your personal experiences. Nobody else sees what's going on in your life if you don't expose them to it, or you don't talk about what things are like for you. So they are experiencing you in a way that you are showing up and interacting with them. They have no idea the amount of effort or attention or focus you have to give to something to show up and be in that space and be present with them. They'll have no idea what happens when you walk away. They won't be exposed to the exhaustion, the need for downtime, the dysregulation, whether that's emotional, sensory, or anything else that you've got going on. That isn't something that everybody is exposed to, but it is something that you are dealing with. You don't have to justify any of it. And I really encourage anybody that I speak with or work with to think about the areas of stress or the trigger points and how you can simplify your life. How do you bring balance in? How do you make your life much easier for you? You don't have to explain that to other people. You don't have to justify where you tick boxes or don't tick boxes if it's a criteria for autism, ADHD or dyslexia. And I think the other point on that note is we know that that diagnostic criteria is out of date in many, many ways. Take autism, for example, where the diagnostic criteria is based on young boys. And if we're being specific, it's based on young, white, middle to high class males, middle to upper class males. And I think that's nothing like somebody like me who was a middle-aged working class woman at the time of diagnosis. And remember, all of these factors make a massive difference. You're not here to justify yourself to anybody. And ultimately, a diagnosis or self-diagnosis or that feeling that you may be neurodivergent or you're a bit different, those are your experiences. You don't need to tick a box to make your life feel more balanced and simpler. And you certainly don't need to tick a box to justify your experiences to other people. And if you're watching this and you're not neurodivergent, but maybe you have somebody in your life that is, or you suspect they may be, please approach this with kindness. Like, be curious about their experiences. Look at how you can offer support. Ask them what they need from you. And believe everything they're telling you, because that is their truth, that is their experience. It doesn't matter if they don't fit in to a stereotype or an idea of what you believe autism, ADHD or dyslexia or any other neurodivergence is for you. It's not about what you believe, it's about the person that you're with. And if you can approach it with that way, I call that loving curiosity. If you can approach that with loving curiosity, you're going to strengthen your connection with the people around you. You're going to strengthen the way that people show up for you, because they're going to feel safe with you. So if you have somebody in your life that is neurodivergent, that really and truly is how you can best offer support. Ask them what they need, be there, show up, create a safe space. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. As always, feel free to put comments below. You can reach out on socials, send me an email directly, hello@autisticjoyologist.co.uk. Really hope you have a great day.